Before we start with our design then, let's just run through the materials and the supplies we're going to need to complete this project. So tools wise, you're going to need a Cricut cutting mat. I'm using a standard grip one today. You could use light grip if you wanted to, because it's not really a project that requires a lot of adhesion, so either of those is fine. I've got a fine point blade, I've got a couple of true control items, so I've got the weeding tool and I've got the knife blade there as well. A basic pair of scissors, I've got 2 paint brushes. This one is a stenciling paintbrush. You can tell it's a stenciling one because it's really flat on the top, so that helps when we want to do stippling later on. Then I've just got a basic paintbrush there to paint my orange with. I've got a piece of vinyl. This is just a scrap of Oracle 651 permanent, which I'm going to use today to make my stencil with. It doesn't really matter what you use for this, whether it's permanent or removable, either will work. And you could also use Cricut Smart stencil material as well if you've got some of that on hand, but this is just what I'm using. Then I've got 3 different paints. I've got my orange, my black, and I've also got some silver here, which I might put a few accents on later on with, but I haven't decided on that just yet. So 3 different paints. And then I've also got this, which I bought from the Works a couple of weeks ago. This is, as you can see, only £4 from the Works, and it's a pumpkin shape. It's quite a substantial decoration, so I think it's going to be great in the porch. We're going to be able to paint it and then use the stencil to make our design on there. So without any further ado, let's get started. Before we start with our design then, the first thing I'm going to do is paint this pumpkin orange. So let's take the price label off and this sticker on the back. They came off really easily. That's nice to have happen. Sometimes it's hard to get them off, isn't it, and you end up with a real mess. I'm just gonna grab one of these goo pots from some puddings that we had a while ago and just put some of this paint into it. It's a bit runny, this paint, actually. I hope it's okay. Should be. If this doesn't work, I've got some stuff that you mix with it to thicken it, but it should be okay. Might need a couple of coats. So first of all, I'm just going to paint this. Here's the finished article then. So I've just done the insides of the slats as well, mostly, so you can see it's still a little bit wet. And the reason that I decided to do this first today before we do the design is just so that whilst we're doing the design, this can be drying. I haven't done the back, I've just gone around the edges, and I'm not sure what to do with the bottom plinth yet. I might leave it natural, or I might put some ribbon or something around it yet. I haven't quite decided, so I'm going to pop it to one side and let's jump into Cricut Design Space and get our design done. So let's just measure this pumpkin. So the widest point is 25 centimetres, and then the height on it from above the plinth there to the top of the pumpkin is 18. So that's the dimensions that we're going to be working with. Here we are in Design Space with a nice blank canvas. First thing I'm going to do is just create a bit of a mock-up shape for my pumpkin. So now that we know the measurements are 25 by 18, I am going to grab a shape and I'm going to use an oval just from the basic free shapes. Then what I'm going to do is unlock the padlock here. I'm going to change my width to be 25. Oops, that says 625, that'll be huge. Change it to 25, and then my height to be 18. and that's going to be roughly the size of the pumpkin. Obviously it's not an exact science, but it gives us a rough space to work with to know where to put our stencil. Now I'm going to change that to orange just to make it look a little bit more pumpkin-y. Then what I'm going to do is choose my font. Now I had originally chosen a font from Creative Fabrica called Halloween, but once I typed out my word I didn't like it, so I've decided not to use that one. So let's type in Halloween again and see what else we can come up with. Otherwise I may well end up using the one that I like at the moment called Wing Charm. It's quite a swirly font, but I quite like it. I want it to be quite floaty looking. So I think I'll try it. Let's try it and see what it comes out like. So the words I'm going to use are Hello Pumpkin. So let's now just ungroup that to lines, and I want to make that a little bit bigger. And I'm thinking about changing this font to actually be a Times New Roman. So let's try what that's going to look like. Let's see if we've got it on here. Sometimes the font is the thing that takes the most time. Yeah, I like that. That's awesome. That's exactly what I want it to be like. Okay, let's put that there. And then let's make that a little bit smaller. So it's going to go here, and then that is going to go there. Now don't forget that we've got the slats as well in between there. So we are going to have some bits of this which are cut out. So let's move that down a touch to there. Right, I'm happy with that now. So we are now going to use this orange oval to make our stencil. So now that we're happy with the layout of that there, what I'm going to do is select everything, and I want to slice it. But as you can see, slice is actually greyed out at the bottom here, and the reasoning for that is because I've got 3 items selected at one time on my screen, and when you're using slice you can only have 2 layers selected. The way to get over this though is to click on pumpkin, and then I'm going to select the hello as well. So you can see they're both selected because they are green. Let's come down to combine, and we're going to unite them to make them one layer. We can still adjust it if we want to, because we've got 2 separate ones underneath. If I'd have clicked weld, these 2 would have completely disappeared and we just would have had this layer, but then that doesn't allow me to undo it to make any changes if I want to. Now I'm going to drag over that again, and as you can see, slice has now become available to use just there. So let's click on slice. Takes a couple of seconds to do. Now what we can do is pull our words away, and we can pull away this hello pumpkin, and there is our stencil. So what we can do now is just either hide or delete those. We don't really need them, so I'm just going to delete it. Then we're left with our slice result layer, which is just here in the layers panel. Now we're ready to actually make this out of some vinyl and then pop it onto the pumpkin and do the stippling with the black paint to put the message onto the wooden pumpkin. Okay then, so here's our mat and our vinyl. I'm just going to pop this onto here. And as you can see, it is a little bit smaller than what the shape of the pumpkin is. It doesn't matter too much because we aren't going to be coming all the way out to the edges on the pumpkin when we actually put the stencil on. I'm just going to go through to make it on the screen. We're just going to check where our cutting is going to end. So the cut's going to end at 22. So that is here, that should be okay, and then it's going to start at 7. So to be honest, we could actually lift up this vinyl, because I'm not too worried about the shape of the orange, the shape of the pumpkin oval cutting out. I just need to make sure that the shape of the lettering cuts out. So I've just moved it over a little bit, and then I'm going to go down to continue. I've got my other machine on as well at the moment, so I'm going to select the one that I want to use, which is the first one. And then it's going to ask me to set my base material. So as usual, I am going to set my base material to be premium outdoor vinyl, and I'm going to give it more pressure because my blade's not that new, so it's a good idea to give it a little bit of extra pressure. Now that that's all done, we're ready to load the mat into the machine and start the cut. So let's head over to the Cricut machine and get this cut out. This is the machine I'm using today then. It's my original Cricut Maker. You can use a Maker 3 or any of the Explore series. I don't think you'll manage to do this one on a Joy, unfortunately. Maybe the new Joy Extra might work because it's a bit big. But all I'm going to do is pop my mat into there. I'm just using the guidelines as usual. Just press the insert mat button. We're ready to go now that that light there is flashing. Let's hit go and wait for the cut to do. Cut's finished then, so let's just double check that it's worked. So I'm just going to pull up the corner of my vinyl away from where that oval is, and that looks good. It's well cut and easy to pull away. I'm just going to eject that mat now. Next we need to do a bit of weeding on this. So I've got my knife and I've got my weeding tool. Don't forget that because we're making a stencil, we need to take out the parts that we would normally leave in with vinyl. So I'm just going to start off by removing the hello. You want to be careful that you leave all these pieces in as well. There we go, that is weeded. It didn't take too long. It was a nice quick and easy design to weed. Now what we want to do is just take this off the mat. I did forget at the start to tell you that you'd need some transfer paper or transfer tape as well, but you will need that because we need to put this stencil down onto our pumpkin. Also, something else worth mentioning at the moment is if you didn't want to do stenciling, you could actually just even cut it out in black vinyl or whatever colour vinyl you wanted, and then you could just pop that onto your pumpkin. So you don't have to use stenciling if you don't want to. Let's grab some transfer tape and get this put onto our pumpkin. For this part then, I'm just going to use a piece of transfer paper that I've actually used a few times before on balloons. This is my favourite type. It's low tack tape. It's a bit like a masking tape, and it's really good because it's sticky enough to pick up the vinyl, but it's not going to damage the paint that we've just put onto our pumpkin here. So I really like this one. If you haven't seen this one before, I will link a video down below for you and up above so that you can check out which one it is that I'm using. And I'm just going to pop that over the top of my design and then just get myself a little scraper and just give that a really good burnish down. This transfer tape isn't that sticky, but it's absolutely brilliant to work with. I absolutely love it, and I use it for virtually everything these days. Let's just turn that over and peel that backing paper off. Lovely. Right, let's just grab our pumpkin. So now we want to make sure that we are in the centre really. So I'm going to now go back to design space. So we've just hopped back into design space then, and you can see if you click on your design that little crosshair that comes up in the middle there is actually the centre of your design. So you could measure your pumpkin here and you could work out where your centre is, but if you have done it the way that I have with the oval shape being roughly the same size, you could just line up where you want your pumpkin to be with the edge of there, and that is going to be roughly where you've got it on your screen. So I'm just going to do that today, and I just want to make sure that it's relatively straight, but I'm doing it by eye, I'm not measuring it. Now you can see here, oh look, I've got a bit of orange paint on me. You can see there where that slat is going to be, and it's also going to be on the P. So I'm actually thinking I might move it over ever so slightly, because I don't really want the P to completely disappear. So I'm just moving it over a little bit. So it's going to be less centered, but I feel like I'm going to get a better sentiment on there. So let's give it a really good press down. I'm not going to use a brayer or a scraper or anything on it today. I'm just using my hands just to do that. And then I'm just going to have a quick look at it, make sure it looks quite straight. It does. Because we've got this big space here, we could actually put something else there as well if we wanted to. Let's just remove that vinyl. You want to try and make sure that all your centres of your letters stay in place. So just take it slow. This is one of the reasons why it's a good idea to use a low tack as well, because if this was a high tack, we are going to find it's going to lift up and it's going to be very, very difficult to put down on our pumpkin. Dot is making her bed next to me. Right, that is done. Next, you just want to give it a really good smooth down. If you've got a heat gun, you could also use your heat gun just to give it a good smooth and make sure that it is nicely attached onto there, because we don't want any bleeding of the paint underneath the vinyl. So it's very similar to when we do a glass with the etching cream. We want to make sure that we don't have any bleeding going underneath that. Okay, now then, it's the fun part. Let's grab the black paint and the little pot again, and then I've got my stippling brush here. I'm going to give this paint a good shake. Make sure the lid's on it before you shake it. You don't want to end up with black paint all up your wall, because that would be a disaster. Let's pop some of that in here. See, this is much thicker than that orange one was. I don't know what's happened to that, but it painted on okay, didn't it? So what you're going to do then is you're going to stipple this. So you want to make sure that you're doing it like this, and you're keeping it nice and flat. If you feel as though you need to stop and re-press down your vinyl, definitely do it as you're going along, and just go slowly. Don't rush, because there's no rush. This is supposed to be a fun activity. So once we've got it all stuck down and we're happy that it's stuck down, let's grab our paint. And don't go too mad with the paint at first. Just a little bit on the brush is absolutely more than sufficient. I'm going to start on this end, and I am going to make sure that my vinyl's pressed down fully, and I'm going to go nice and slow just over it like this. There we go then, I'm happy with the black now. I'm not going to let it dry. I am going to peel this vinyl off more or less straight away, but you're going to have to be quite careful with that and make sure that you don't dribble any paint on there. So what I'm going to do is just try and lift up any of the extra paint which I can see is there. I don't want to mess up my stippling though by putting any brush marks in it, so I'm literally just going to pick it up. I'm hoping I haven't got any bleeding, but if I have, I think it will be part of the design. So let's just carefully peel this back. I think it's going to have made it look quite funky, so So let's take off the vinyl. Could have done with an extra pair of hands for this part, I think. There we go. Okay, I've got a little bit of a bleed on that P. That doesn't matter too much. Let's get a weeding tool now and just pick up these extra bits of vinyl. I am going to grab my tweezers actually, just to make sure that I don't get any of this on my hands. Well, not too much of it anyway, because I don't want it to be. I'm not going to use this piece of transfer tape again, so I'm going to use that as my little box to put it on. Let's just get that under there. This is quite a difficult bit. Yep. I'm quite pleased with how this has turned out. It looks really nice. Yeah. Let's turn this round. Just get this bit off here. There we go. Lovely. And then I think I've got one more swirly bit here to get. Oh. There we go. That's awesome. I'm pleased with that. That looks fab. I'm going to let it dry. I might try and paint over that with the orange if I can. I really like the way that the wood has sort of carried the paint. Can you see it? How it's sort of spread it out. It looks great. I'm really pleased with it. Let's let that dry then. I'm really pleased with how that's turned out. I'm going to just go and grab some ribbon that I bought when I bought this actually, and I'm going to make a little bow and I'm going to pop that on there as well. This is the ribbon I'm going to use then, and again it was from the Works. It was only £1, but look how cute these little pumpkins are. I think they're going to be fab. So let's get this open. So I've cut myself a small bit of ribbon. I am just going to make myself a little bow out of this. So I'm just going to use the hand tying method. If you haven't seen this one, I will link a video up above for you that you can see how to do it. So I'm just going to get my ribbon around my hand a couple of times, and then I'm going to pass it underneath there in between my fingers. Then it comes back down underneath that loop to create a knot there, and then we just give it a little pull backwards and forwards, and that creates our little bow. So that is that. Just pull those out so it looks pretty. Then let's just snip that end off there in a little dovetail, I think. And I'm going to grab a lighter and just give that a little bit of a singe off on the end, just to stop it from fraying. There we go. So that is now ready to go onto our pumpkin. Now I've got my little bow made. I'm going to pop it in this corner, I think, where I said I was going to put something a bit extra. I don't know if these tails are a little bit too long though, so I might actually snip them down a little bit more, which means I need to then re-singe them. There we go. I think that'll be better with a smaller little end on it, and then that can go just there. So let's grab some hot glue just on the back there of that bow. Not too much, just a little blob, and then again pop that there. Oh, I love it. It's going to look so nice in my porch for Halloween. I'm so pleased with how it's turned out. As usual, everything that I've used will be linked down below for you. Some of those links may be affiliate links, but all that means is it doesn't cost you anything extra if you purchase anything through any of those links. It just means that I get a few pennies paid to me, and it does help me to buy things like this pumpkin and the ribbons to make sure that I can do more projects like this for you in the future. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, don't forget to subscribe. Drop me any questions or comments that you may have down below, and I will always respond to you where I can. I hope you have a brilliant Halloween. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again real soon. Bye!